Well, it just took quite a bit of time. You know, they do, we work through an agency and they do all kinds of gather information and can we afford it and is our home adequate or whatever. And your background, to be sure, would be proper. Probably not much different through a regular agency, but there are a lot are not really properly done, I would say. You know, they're more individual. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
You see ads in the paper, you know, and they don't really know much of anything about the people that answer unless they involve a lawyer or other legal means. Then, of course, it's probably going to be okay. In some ways, but a lot of it depends really on your motivation and your age and, you know, what you're hoping for. If you're fussy about what you want, or sometimes the regular organizations, they're very concerned trying to match you with the child's background, and some of that is fine, but it isn't always necessary, and especially if a child's an infant. If they're a little older, perhaps it's good to take into consideration more about, you know, what their family and their life was like before. But they really tried with us to match somewhat your nationality, your background, education, your coloring. Our family was, both sides, a lot of redheads. And part of it was British Isles, Scotch, and that sort of thing. But I don't think that's terribly important, because some of us had black hair and blue eyes, some of us had red hair and green eyes, and, you know, but it might make the child feel more like they fit in. And adoption was not unusual in our family and among our friends. We had a lot of friends. So it made the children feel just like everybody else. And I think so. I mean, a lot of people have, and for various reasons. No, I doubt if there's too much difference, except way back when this was hidden. Yeah. The girl just disappeared for a while and went to her aunts or cousins or something, you know. But nowadays it's very open. You see probably a good share of the birth announcements are people not married. Now, that just wasn't done years ago. A lot of other countries' adoptions now. I don't know what they do as far as investigating the families and all that. But our country's so full of every kind of nationality you could imagine today that I don't think the children would feel out of place here or anything like that. Some might, but again, it depends on the age. And a lot of them are not infants. I would prefer an infant. I think it's easier for everybody involved. Possible, yes, yes.
Okay.
But most people want it final. You know, if for adoption, I mean, I wouldn't care to have the original family involved. I think this would be difficult for a child, an infant, a little child to understand. And some of them are, they're adopted by friends or something, you know. They were always told early on, as soon as they could understand. And it didn't seem to bother, especially the boys. Now the girls had a little more trouble wondering why their mothers had given them up. The boys just sort of and it didn't really get them all emotional. But I know one of the girls tried to find her family. And that's when there's certain years when you couldn't. It was all sealed and private. And she was very upset because she said our friends wouldn't let her say. And it was a law. It really had nothing to do with our friends. But there are other years where you can go. But I wouldn't advise it until they're mature enough to accept all the facts. Some of it would be a disappointment, and others would be very happy. If you have a lot of similar talents and things of that nature, as soon as they're able to understand, yes. As far as researching or trying to find their parents, no, not until they're 18, 19, whatever, able to handle it. And sometimes they're very much upset and disappointed at what they find. Other times it's okay, and they accept it and maybe continue some kind of an association with them. Other times, once they've seen them and met them, they're satisfied, and that's the end of it. Well, I think, like I said, probably 18, or by the time they're adult, emotionally, or even 20, 21, if they're going to open records, they would have to inquire which years it's possible and so forth. I don't recommend it, but I don't object if the child is one that needs it, you know. Each case is kind of different.
Could you mention? Yeah.
I really don't think it was as much.
As much as it is now?
Of course, this was back in the 40s and 50s, and it was right after the war, pretty much, and everybody was trying to get settled and back into a routine, and there were kind of ill feelings about some countries, I'm afraid, but that shouldn't affect a child. Well, we always told them what little we knew, which wasn't a lot, but positive things mostly, and in most cases it was a very easy choice for the parent, depending on the situation. Some were kids in school, and they had no means of supporting a child. They hadn't even finished their education. They hadn't finished maturing and growing, and it just was an easy choice.
Okay.
So I don't know how the law has changed that much. It depends somewhat on the country and what the current rules are. But they can try, you know.